Android tablets are subpar. Or so the conventional wisdom goes. Sure, Samsung releases a few Galaxy tabs for the sake of it every year, and Amazon floods the low-end market with budget-friendly Fire tabs, but the only tablets worth buying are Apple's iPads. Xiaomi, for better or worse, clearly intends to change that. The Xiaomi Pad 5 represents a concerted effort to create a high-quality mid-range Android tablet priced to compete directly with the entry-level iPad. As you'd expect from Xiaomi, it outperforms its Apple counterpart in nearly every way, while also delivering the kind of slick design that Apple reserves for its premium models. Questions remain about how Android, and specifically MIUI, can compete with iPadOS, but with the tablet and foldable-focused Android 12L on the horizon, those worries should fade. I've already stated that the Pad 5 takes on the design language of the higher-end iPads, and I mean that literally. With squared-off edges, a slim bezel, and premium materials, this clearly evokes the iPad Pro aesthetic, and is light years ahead of the dated design of the closest comparable iPad. You can criticize Xiaomi's creativity, but you can't argue with the results. The Pad 5 has a slick finish and a build that feels almost impossibly thin and light for its size. It's only 6.9mm thick, slimmer than almost any phone, and weighs only 511 grams. My review unit is in the color Xiaomi calls Cosmic Gray, but it may also be available in white and green depending on where you live. While the Pad 5's frame is made of aluminum, the back is made of plastic. Some may be disappointed by the lack of a glass back, but plastic adds sturdiness to a device that may be used without a case, and Xiaomi has finished it here in a way that never feels cheap or, well, plasticky. In terms of controls, you'll only find a power button and a volume rocker on opposite sides of the frame. A USB-C port and a Pogo connector for Xiaomi's accompanying keyboard are also included. On that note, an official keyboard and stylus pair are available for the Pad 5. From a hardware standpoint, there is one vexing omission: no fingerprint sensor. There's a small cylindrical marking on the right-hand side of the frame that appears to be intended to house a fingerprint reader, but it's not there, nor is one supported by the display. Face unlock is an option, but it's less secure and often less convenient, so it's a shame that no fingerprint option is available. The screen's main selling point is its 120Hz refresh rate, which is a premium feature that you wouldn't necessarily expect at this price. This allows for smoother animations and increased fluidity throughout the device. It's a feature that's now near standard across Android phones, so chances are you've tried it out by now. If you're a serious gamer, it will also enable frame rates above 60 frames per second. However, the display is not without merit in other areas. This is an 11-inch panel with a whopping 2.5K resolution. Despite the fact that it is IPS LCD rather than OLED, it has an excellent color range and supports both HDR10 and Dolby Vision. This is a really enjoyable display to use, with punchy colors and great viewing angles, whether you're working, browsing the web, or streaming a few shows. No, it's not the absolute pinnacle of tablet displays, but at this price, it doesn't have to be. Xiaomi appears to have put even more effort into the audio. No, there isn't a 3.5mm audio jack. It'll be wireless or USB-C headphones only, I'm afraid, but the quad speakers are quite impressive. Speakers are more important on a tablet than on a phone because you're more likely to use them to watch TV or make video calls, and I have no complaints about the output here. Of course, the bass punch is limited, but for the size of the Pad 5, there's plenty of audio power here, not to mention Dolby Atmos support. Xiaomi made wise choices in speccing out the Pad 5, maximizing performance without forcing it into a higher price point. The use of the Snapdragon 860, an overclocked version of an older Qualcomm flagship chipset, is critical to this. Essentially, you get enough power to handle most everyday tasks and keep this capable of playing even demanding games at reasonable settings, but you don't pay extra for the latest 5G connectivity or machine learning upgrades and features optimized for flagship phones demanding cameras. If there is a compromise, it is that the Pad 5 is only available with 6GB of RAM, when I would have preferred 8GB. There are models with 128GB or 256GB of storage, though availability varies by region, and keep in mind that there is no microSD card slot, so this is not expandable. In terms of performance, the Pad 5 kept up with last year's premium flagship Galaxy Tab S7 Plus, outperforming all other Galaxy Tabs and the recently released Nokia T20 tablet. Although it lags behind all of the iPads in terms of pure performance, on the Android side, this is one of the most powerful tablets available, especially given the price. I mentioned that one of Xiaomi's cost-cutting measures is to avoid 5G altogether. In fact, there is no 4G, with the global version of the Pad 5 only available in a Wi-Fi model, so keep that in mind if you're looking for an always-online device. Unfortunately, Wi-Fi 6 isn't supported, so you won't get the absolute fastest speeds, but you'd need a fairly modern router to support that technology anyway. Other than that, there's Bluetooth 5.0, but no NFC, which is rarely used on tablets anyway. Tablet battery life is difficult to assess due to the wide range of use cases. Some will require an all-day device for taking notes and working on, while others will only require something to sit on the coffee table for checking emails and watching Netflix. I tend to fall into the latter category, and with that in mind, the Pad 5's 8720 mAh battery has impressed. I can leave it charged and ready to use for days at a time, and I've never been concerned about its longevity. More is revealed by our fabricated battery benchmark. In the PCMark battery test, the Pad 5 lasts about 10.5 hours, longer than any Samsung Galaxy Tab we've tested in the last 2 years, and clearly enough to power a day's work on the device. Charging after the battery has been depleted is one of the Pad 5's peculiarities. If you look at the tablet's specifications, you'll notice that it supports 33-watt charging, but you won't find a 33-watt charger in the box. Instead, Xiaomi ships the Pad 5 with a 22.5-watt charger capable of charging the tablet to 25% in 30 minutes, adequate for a tablet but not spectacular. You can achieve faster speeds if you have a faster charger or don't mind purchasing one. I was able to restore 35% of the battery in half an hour using the 55-watt Xiaomi charger that comes with the Mi 11, which should have delivered power at around the 33-watt the tablet can handle. Finally, it should come as no surprise that wireless charging is not supported. Few tablets have it, especially low-cost ones, and it's certainly a feature that's less popular on larger devices. Cameras aren't that important on tablets. In other words, rear cameras aren't that important. This is one area where Xiaomi has undoubtedly been outperformed by Apple's entry-level iPad. This year, Apple made the wise decision to put the better camera on the front of the iPad, whereas Xiaomi followed smartphone norms and prioritized the rear shooter. The 8-megapixel, f2.0 selfie camera on this device is simply not good, which is a shame. It'll suffice for video calls, which is where it'll most likely be used, but image quality is still fairly soft due to the low resolution, and there's a steep quality drop if you're not well lit. The 13-megapixel f2.0 rear camera is superior, but you'll probably only use it occasionally. If you do need to take photos with the tablet, it can take some surprisingly good shots with vibrant color and decent detail, even in low light, though it isn't designed for true night photography. It can even shoot 4K video at 30 frames per second if necessary. Another strange thing about the Pad 5 is that it appears to have 2 cameras on the back. There aren't any. The lower lens is purely cosmetic. If you look closely, you'll notice it simply says 13 megapixel, which is most likely due to Xiaomi reusing the camera module from a dual-camera smartphone. To be sure, it's a little deceptive, so keep that in mind. Apart from the few minor annoyances mentioned above, there's very little to criticize about the Xiaomi Pad's hardware. That isn't quite as true on the software side, but that doesn't mean the experience is bad. It's just not up to Apple's standards. The Pad 5 is powered by Xiaomi's MIUI 12.5, which, despite the name, is based on Android 11 rather than the more recent Android 12. While Xiaomi has promised 3 major Android version updates for some of its phones, there is no such promise for the Pad 5 tablet as of yet. That means we don't know how many Android updates the tablet will receive, or how many years of security software protection it will receive. MIUI has only received minor tweaks to accommodate the tablet form factor, and is otherwise a familiar experience for anyone who has used a Xiaomi phone. A 2-column settings menu, control center and notification split between swipes down from the right and left sides of the screen, and an enlarged task switcher with split-screen options are among the concessions to the big screen. The UI has been stretched out to fit the larger tablet screen in general, but some elements still feel unfinished. The home screen is the best example of this, with tons of dead space and only a few rows where you can actually place app icons or widgets. As a result, whether you like it or not, everything is spread out, and there isn't a lot of usable space. This is just one of several minor software annoyances caused by the tablet form factor. It's difficult to tell which of these are due to Xiaomi's MIUI skin and which are due to Google's own poor tablet optimization in Android. The Xiaomi Pad 5 is a fantastic Android tablet, but it is still just that, a tablet. On the hardware front, there's little to complain about, with a lightweight design bolstered by powerful specs, a stunning display, and excellent speakers. It would be nice to see more modern connectivity options, including an LTE model, but there isn't much else to complain about here. The software is typical for an Android tablet, which means it's adequate but not up to par with an iPad. Despite Xiaomi's best efforts, Android isn't fully optimized for tablets, so you'll encounter some issues while using the Pad 5. Still, the tablet runs smoothly even if it doesn't fully utilize the large screen, and with Android 12L improvements on the horizon, this doesn't seem like a compelling reason to avoid the Pad 5. Simply put, if you want to buy a tablet around this price range and don't mind sacrificing Android, this is the one to get.